Hello and welcome to Bunny Hop. My name's George Weedman, and unfortunately I have some bad news to report about Dark Souls 2. The PC version of Dark Souls 2 just came out, and as you can see, the game is loading up and seems to be running fine for me, but it makes this internet connectivity test for the multiplayer features that does not connect. Right now, it's giving me this error. The Dark Souls 2 service is not available. Please try again later. That's not unreasonable. A lot of multiplayer-focused online games have a lot of server issues during launch. That's to be expected. But what's fishy is that a lot of my friends playing this game right now as I record this aren't having this kind of issue. And I thought that was a bit fishy. On the Steam forums, a lot of users seem to be worried about the game denying connectivity to VAC banned servers. And my account has been banned by that before, and I'll get into that story in a minute, but just to test this out, I family shared the game over to an alternate account without any history of VAC bans, and what do you know? It logs in just fine. But there are a number of problems with that. If this connectivity issue really is related to VAC bans, then the first problem with that is that it goes against Valve's own company policy. Take a look at this. Consider it Exhibit A. Cheating in one of the following source games will result in a VAC ban of all games in the list. Dark Souls 2 is not in this list. Dark Souls 2 also does not say that it's a VAC-enabled game on the store page. For Valve's own games, VAC bans are applied across game engines, and not specific games. But for games that aren't Valve games, they are specific. As it says right here, VAC bans will only apply to the games the cheat was detected in. Considering that I just installed Dark Souls 2 and might have played a whole 2 minutes past the opening video, there has been literally no time for me to even research how cheating in this game would work. You essentially have a situation here where VAC is illegitimately enforcing rules outside of its own turf. And I don't really know who's to blame here. I want to stress the fact that this could be a From Software problem, not a Valve problem. This is their first time working with Steamworks, and they have proven themselves incompetent at making PC games in the past. It could be an error from poor Steamworks integration from their side, or it could be Valve stepping out of their territory and cracking down on banned accounts even harder. But the VAC system is not infallible. It makes mistakes, and it has a record of registering false positives. Wikipedia has a list of news stories where this has happened in the past, and it also has a list of programs that aren't cheats that will still trigger a VAC ban on you. So this mod is one of them. Consider it Exhibit B. I'm not going to link to it because I don't want anyone to have to go through the trouble I've gone through, but I consider this mod evidence that VAC casts too wide of a net. This is what got me. It's a bloom mod for Half-Life 1. You know, like a fake HDR effect. Granted, it's a little overboard, but at the time I was willing to update Half-Life 1's graphics in as many ways as I could. At the time, this page also didn't have this big red warning at the bottom asking you not to install it. That was 6 years ago, and no matter what VAC detects or how long it has been, Valve enforces a kind of zero-tolerance policy for false positives that don't affect tens of thousands of users, and my issue just so happened to fall into that crack. I actually dug up my old support ticket. It's from 6 years ago, and nothing has changed. The reason given for the ban was that I was using a hooked file. A lot of you nowadays probably know what a hooked file is, so I'll let that sink in. A hooked file. Back in 2008, after researching up on it, I figured out what he was talking about. A hooked DLL file. That's what was inside the mod folder, and that enables it to add bloom to the game, by modifying the OpenGL graphics API to display new graphical effects that aren't originally in the game. A lot of cheats use hooked files to make walls transparent, but you know what else uses hooked files? Mods do. Lots of Half-Life 1 mods use a modified OpenGL file. Paranoia does, Cry of Fear does, and those mods are associated with giving people VAC bans. But one extremely important mod elsewhere in the world does this same trick, but with DirectX DLLs instead. It's called E&B series. The E&B mods that you see all over Skyrim and Fallout and GTA are using hooked files. E&B is the mod framework that allowed DSFix to happen, and DSFix is what arguably corrected a lot of the developer mistakes behind the first Dark Souls PC port. A mod using a hooked file is responsible for making Dark Souls a profitable product to sell. So that's the relation. File hooking causes people to get VAC banned, and file hooking is also responsible for making Dark Souls a profitable product. So what happened back then was that VAC was banning accounts for using graphics mods that technically put their players at a disadvantage, and calling it cheating because their program couldn't tell the difference between a hooked file being used for enhancing graphical bells and whistles and a hooked file being used for cheating. Note that Valve's own policy states that using custom skins, sounds, or maps and playing multiplayer mods which do not modify core exe or DLL files will not result in a VAC ban. So what the hell is happening? Nowadays, 6 years later, I am still seeing repercussions for a mistake that the system made. And I think that's kind of unreasonable. But scrolling through the Steam forums shows that people are mostly unwilling to accept the possibility that VAC is sometimes wrong. But Valve is currently implementing a policy of basically zero tolerance and zero forgiveness for people being accused by very fallible software. VAC bans are irreversible and permanent. They're stamped on your account for life, on top of all those games you've spent hundreds of dollars on, and they won't disclose or thoroughly investigate the legitimacy of your ban. I have a suspicion that a lot of the people who have VAC bans on their accounts are kids and teenagers who will eventually grow out of cheating at some point in their entire lifetime. But I also have a feeling that it has also affected a lot more tech-savvy users like myself, who are making and using legitimate mods that aren't considered cheating. And what's sad is that Valve gets a lot of praise and admiration from the PC gaming community, but the length of these VAC bans and Valve's unquestioning assurance to their legitimacy brings up a side of the company that I feel is a real problem. It's ultimately up to you to decide if this problem with Dark Souls 2 is ethical, right, wrong, or simply a technical error. And just for the record, my money is on technical error. But what this error has done is resurrected a very old sore spot in Valve's anti-cheating policy. And as the years keep rolling and rolling on, I can only hope that this is a topic that eventually gets their attention.